Here we go.
Well, hello there. How is everyone? I hope you're well. You amazing, beautiful, wonderful people. It's Friday. We made it through the week. Thank Crunchy, it's Friday. TGIF and all that. You're looking amazing, by the way. So we get straight into the meat and potatoes, as today we're going back to look at the Goncalves family once again, because the Goncalves family are a family who have been very outspoken. That is, they've definitely been very outspoken about how they feel about the entire situation. And Bryan Kohberger, we've heard Christy Goncalves, for instance, turning around and saying that she just doesn't want Bryan Kohberger to be breathing anymore, which, do you know what? If she truly believes and trusts the system that Bryan Kohberger is the person that did this crime, then I suppose some people would consider that that's just a natural response. That's how she's going to feel, because she feels that this is the guy that did the crime and he deserves it. So a lot of people will believe that this is granted. You know, it's how it should be. But what I don't get is that if you are on the hunt for justice, right? You want justice to be served. You want to guarantee that the person who did this to your child is held accountable. They go through the system, they're found guilty, and they are punished to whatever extent of the law that is. You would think that they would want to do every single thing in their power to make sure that that happens and that there are no issues. But there lies the problem, because the Goncalves family have behaved in a manner which puts that at risk. If the system's working properly. Now, if indeed the system is completely broken, then there's a good chance that it doesn't matter what people do, because ultimately this is just about getting a result, and they don't really then take into consideration the effects that the behaviour of people around this situation has on the chance for this person to obtain a fair trial. Because ultimately, however you feel about it, Bryan Kohberger, he should have a fair trial. We've said this consistently, and you know, at the moment, that is a real question. The real question is, can Bryan Kohberger enter a courtroom and receive a fair trial? And it would be interesting to ask some of these people around this, like the Goncalves family, do they care whether he gets a fair trial? Because I don't think that they would care. And again, there lies the problem. Because their behaviour, their want to destroy this person, seemingly before he's even entered the courtroom, is problematic. And they have just recently released a statement, which I'm going to read to you. Goncalves family statement. This journey for justice for Kaylee, Maddie, Xana and Ethan is filled with highs and lows. I get it. That's correct. Some days you are hopeful that justice will be served, and other days you are filled with hopelessness and sadness. Today is a day for hope. The last 2 years in front of Judge have been filled with frustration and disappointment. From not pronouncing the victims' names correctly, laughing in the courtroom, to entertaining every ridiculous motion or argument the defence could muster. That has been our last 2 years, and now we are hopeful again. We finally have a judge who we believe is prepared, thoughtful, and understands the process. There is a level of seriousness that has not been present for a long time. So today we heard of the motions being denied in regards to the death penalty. We are overjoyed. For our family, for our friends, for our supporters, for everyone who has shed a tear, made a donation, had to slip that in there, or listened to the story of the children that were murdered. Justice is moving forward, and one day in the not so distant future, hopefully it will be served. Thank you again to everyone for all your support and prayers, and especially for the people of Boise who have welcomed us with open arms. So they're in Boise, they're making themselves obviously known in there, and this is problematic. This is problematic. I always said, do you know what I mean? What is their desires for going into Boise? Is that to go as a group of people who try to impact how they feel about the situation, you know, to feel sorry for them. Because it's things like this, which I get that they want to get seen and they want to behave in this way, but I don't think they truly understand the impact that that could have moving forward. Because if I was the legal representation of Bryan Kohberger, I would absolutely be leveraging things like this. And again, I say this in a position of if Bryan Kohberger's innocent or guilty. Do you know what I mean? If he is truly guilty and he'd done this crime, he still has to be able to receive a fair trial. And it's things like this that are going to impact that. So if there is a time that comes which would dictate that Bryan Kohberger is unable to receive a fair trial because the damage in the public arena has just been made to such an extent that that's impossible, then it's going to be the likes of the Goncalves family who have facilitated that. So I get that they're in pain. I get that they have gone through something that I would not wish upon anybody. But I still feel that the best thing for them to do is to remain silent in terms of how they feel about the situation, what they want and what they desire. I think everybody knows what they want and desire. By now, we know that they're going to be in a position where whoever they feel done this crime, they are going to want them to be punished. That goes without saying. I don't see the benefit in voicing that publicly, and not only voicing it publicly, but being quite nasty and vindictive about it. You know, we know that if somebody loses a child, how they feel. We don't know in terms of if you haven't walked that walk, then you can't truly understand the pain that's felt in that situation. But you can, you know, we are human. We understand that if someone loses a child, the impact that that's going to have upon them. And I think we've seen that firsthand with the Goncalves family about how destructive that has become. Because I think it's got to the point where they simply cannot see the damage that they could potentially do in the pursuit of justice. And they're being facilitated in doing so, because every time something happens, they feel like they've got to make a public statement about it. You don't see any other person around this crime making public statements about every single thing that happens. This is becoming, and I said this before, the Goncalves family versus Bryan Kohberger. That's what this is becoming. And the downside is the more that they do and the more that people have enough of them, because there is going to be those people. There are going to be people who started in a position of liking the Goncalves family and they've gone down this journey with them. Like, you go onto their Facebook page. Now, let's not forget, they've raised multiple GoFundMes to the tune of around over $100,000. But then it would seemingly suggest in the background that they are independently wealthy. They've got property outside of where they live. They're showing family members having tattoos done and, you know, and going on holiday and doing things. And yet, off the back end of that, they're requesting money from those around them and making it seem as if they don't get that help, then they cannot do the things that they need to do in terms of going to the trial, going to Boise. And I just question the integrity around that. Can they really not afford to go to trial? So if they didn't have these GoFundMes, they simply wouldn't go? I don't believe it. That's just my opinion, but I don't believe it. And this is going to make people feel a certain way. And I've said this before, there will be people who simply want Bryan Kohberger to walk free, whether he is innocent or guilty, just because of the way he has been treated in the run-up to his trial. Because make no bones about it, whether Bryan Kohberger is innocent or guilty, he deserves to go through the process, and the process has to function appropriately. It has to function in a manner which will mean that he can go through it, and when it comes to a conclusion, we can be all together in agreement that the conclusion is correct, it's right, it's proper. And whether he walks because he should walk. If he's punished, he's punished because he should be punished. Now, I do agree that a lot of the paperwork that we've seen filed in terms of the death penalty, I think that was just pissing into the wind. But ultimately, they should do that. You know, that's part of their, you know, their job as a defence team, to try and get things done. And we've seen cases recently, the Vallow situation, for instance. She was placed into a position where she had to make a decision on waiving your speedy rights or go into a trial unprepared, which is exactly the same as the situation Bryan Kohberger was found in. And they removed the death penalty off the table for Laurie Vallow. So why shouldn't the defence team approach the courts and have this conversation? Because again, if you can go into one court and have the death penalty waived for that exact reason, then why shouldn't they be able to do the same? Because that is what happened in this situation. It is what happened. And whether people want to stick their head up their arse and pretend that's not what happened, it is what happened. So, you know, you can't criticise the defence team for doing the defence team's job. But one thing we do need to kind of address before I wrap this video up is with respect of the IgG situation, the DNA. Now, I have said, and I think multiple other creators have also said, that there is a potential that the IgG information was obtained illegally. When in reality, that's maybe not true. Because for that to be obtained illegally, there first needs to be a law set in place that would dictate that the acquisition of that DNA is illegal. That there is a law that says you cannot do this, and if you do it, there is a repercussion for doing so. That's the way that law works. And it wouldn't appear that, with respect of the IgG situation, that there is a law set in place that would stipulate that the way in which they obtained the DNA was illegal, even if they went to a company that were not going to share that DNA with law enforcement, or they state to their, you know, their clients that we don't share this. If it's acquired by the FBI, there still isn't, seemingly, I could be wrong. If I am wrong, then put a link down below that rectifies that mistake. But it would appear that there is no law that would say that the FBI cannot approach and obtain. It may mean that they are not able to use this as evidence, but it looked like they weren't going to use it as evidence anyway. They were just going to use it as a point of reference. So this is where this IgG becomes a sticky wicket with respect to the Idaho 4 case and Bryan Kohberger. But they still have to answer the question, when did you find Bryan Kohberger? How did you find him? And take us through the entire process. Because again, we're left in this zone where we feel that this case was reverse engineered. That someone pointed the finger and they filled in the blanks. That's just the vibe that you get off this case. And if that is the case and someone did point the finger and the rest is history, then again that leads a massive, massive chance of this being wrong. That someone pointed the finger, they didn't do their investigation and the investigation led them there, they were pointed in that direction. And again, that then brings into the question, how valid are things such as the knife sheath, for instance? Could the knife sheath have been planted? And don't think that these things do not happen. I've said this multiple times, because it can happen. Maybe the sheath was found there, but it didn't have any DNA on it. Who knows? And there are so many fucking rumours that are going about. Apparently the knife sheath has got Bryan Kohberger's dad's initials engraved on it. Or other dickhead channels that are saying that DNA was found inside the car. Think about who you're listening to. Even yesterday I was having people in the comments who are making statements about this case that simply weren't true. And I have to wonder, who are you listening to? Who are you listening to? If you have got a genuine investment in this case, then be invested in it. Go through the court hearings, go through the court docs. Don't use your points of reference, News Nation, Dateline, Court TV, all these places that are people who are controlled by people. They have a certain narrative to push out, which we've seen heavily in cases like the Liam Payne death. recently. Again, mainstream media, legacy media, pushing things in a specific direction. Stop being sheep. I'll catch you all in the next one.